AI has officially entered into the world of project management. Looking at the new PMI PMBOK 8th edition, it introduces 22 groundbreaking AI use cases. And today, we'll be putting one of it to test. My name is Ada. Welcome to my channel. If you enjoy learning about how AI is transforming project management, please don't forget to subscribe. Before we jump in, here are a few essentials. You will need to understand the basic knowledge of artificial intelligence, prompt engineering, which includes different types of prompting and also chaining technique. If you don't have a clue, that's okay. Don't worry about it because PMI offers free courses on these topics, and I will be providing you with a link in the description below. Well, let's jump in. PMI has provided us with some AI use cases, and our first use case for today will be on risk identification and assessment. This is where AI algorithm can analyze historical project data and industrial benchmark to identify potential risks in new projects. By using predictive analytics, AI can assess the likelihood and the impact of those risks, enabling project managers to develop comprehensive plan. What does this really mean? It means that there are three things that we need to look out for once we are analyzing this. The first one is the risk identification, the second is the risk assessment, and the third is developing a comprehensive risk management plan. So let's explain it step by step. The first step is risk identification. How do we do this, or how does AI do this? The AI will scan those historical project data and compare it with those industrial benchmark and document for you some of those risks that it has been identified. The second one is risk assessment. So AI uses predictive analytics to estimate one, the likelihood, the second, the impact. When we talk about likelihood, we're looking at how probably will this risk happen. Then, when we talk about impact, we are talking about how severe the consequences would be. Will it be 3 months delay? Will it be $1 million above budget? Then, it will now create a quantified view of the risk. Rather than you just having your gut feeling and just feeling and just say, okay, I feel that this may happen. You have those quantified view from an AI telling you that these are the likelihood of this risk happening and these are the impacts. Then the last thing that it does is that it develops a comprehensive risk management plan for you that you can share with your sponsors or even with the leadership in your organization. So why does this really matters? It really matters because as a project manager, I become more proactive more than being reactive. Instead of me waiting for problems to happen, I can be prepared in advance with some of those risks that have been identified and assessed. As we all know, AI works with data. They are data-driven decisions. With you using AI, you can be able to make some data-driven decisions. Risks aren't just for you for guessing, but they are backed up with some of those analytics that you do have. Then the third one I have in is better resource allocation. You can be able to allocate some of your time and your money to where it's most needed, mostly. Before we start, I just wanted to let you know that there are tools out there that can do this. Tools like when you pair up Microsoft projects with Copilot or Asana or PlanView or ClickIt and so many out there that can do this AI tags for project management. However, if you're in that position whereby you are not opportune to have those tools, I'll be able to show you some of how you can use prompting, and also use tools like PMI Infinity, Copilot, Gemini, or even ChatGPT to accomplish this. Before we jump into Copilot, we'll need to build our prompt for this risk identification. What I did use in creating my risk identification prompt is I used the prompting formula called RTF, which is the role, tags, and formats. So I asked Copilot to ask on a specific role, which is acts as a senior project manager. Specific action that I want him to do, which is the risk identification. I'm using my project scenarios, my historical data, and industrial benchmark provided to identify potential risk. In this prompt, I deliberately did not put the format, but don't worry, I have another prompt after this one in our next session in which we'll go through the format. Now that we have completed our prompt, the next step is to document our project scenario. The project name will be Project Nova. It's a cloud ERP migration. The sponsor is the retail division operation. The objective is to migrate the company's decade-old, highly customized on-prem ERP system to a modern SaaS cloud platform. This will involve data cleansing, API development for legacy integration, and staff training. We have also documented some of the key constraints and parameters, which is budget 8 months, timeline 12 months, it's a fixed go live and it must be completed by the end of the year. Scope must maintain integration with existing legacy point of sale system, which is 15 years old and has minimal documentation. For the technical team, the team is composed of new hires. None of those new hires have worked on any legacy ERP system. We only have one expert who has worked on that legacy ERP system, and he'll be retiring in 8 months. Change management and training will be for 500 plus users from different departments, like 3 departments: the finance, HR, and the supply chain. After documenting the project scenario, the next thing we did is we went to the company. We got historical IT projects that has been completed within the past 1 year. So what we got is the first project we got was Project Zenith. Project Zenith is a warehouse build, data warehouse build. Its initial budget was 4.5 million, final cost is 5.2 million, planned duration was 10, and the actual duration was 14. We also have our Project Echo, which is the HR system upgrade. We also have that was also late, and we also documented some of the summary about the incident recorded in each and every project. We have Project Sigma, which was an inventory migration. That was also late. We documented that. Project Vortex was the only one that was on time. We documented it, and it's a CRM implementation. We documented it, and we also documented why it was on time. Down here, I have my key historical notes kind of a summary about the project, the those projects, the four projects, historical projects that we have here. So I just documented it in with respect to data cleansing and also legacy system. So the next step we did was we went out, we got some of those industrial benchmark. We gathered some of those consulting IT industry reports and we provided to provide a broader context for all those migration lists. Down here you could see that we have some standard IT project benchmark for those current years. So we documented that. We also documented the legacy integration. Over there, we also documented some of those industrial benchmark with respect to key personnel, risk, and also training adoption. Once we have this information, the next step that we did was to input all this information into Copilot. The information we provided from our prompt one, we added it into Copilot, and Copilot was able to build a comprehensive risk identification for Project Nova. Looking at this, it shares it into different sections. The first section is on data quality and data migration risk. For our risk one, it's identified underestimated data cleansing effort, which would take saying that the historical data shows cleansing takes 3 times longer than estimated. As a project manager, I'm going in with this information on the new project and I'm trying as much as possible to see how I can mitigate this risk. The next risk that we have was an incomplete or poor quality legacy data, ERP data. So for that one, it shows that most of the legacy ERP that we know are usually highly customized or poorly documented. So that would be nice to know as we get into those projects as a project manager to say, hey, we have had projects in the past in which had poorly documentation, and this may be the case. So I'm going in there trying to say, do I add more time? Do I add cost into it in order to mitigate this? Another one is my data mapping gap between on-prem ERP and SaaS ERP. So like we do know, anytime you're moving from an on-prem ERP to SaaS, there's always issues with data mapping. The second section talks about the legacy integration and technical complexity risk. And we have 3 risks under this. It talks about the integration with 15-year-old POS system, minimal documentation from historical projects, which is one. So I'm going into that project knowing that, oh, there's not going to be documentation. Industrial benchmark has told me that I need like 20 to 30% contingency needed for those workaround. Those information are golden for me to go into any project and be able to manage the project effectively. The second risk in this section is the API development complexity. With the information that we do have, we know that there are new hires for this cloud platform, and most of them has not been long enough in the company to understand the legacy ERP. So I have that, and I know that if they are new, then that means they will need more time to be able to understand the complexity of those API. Third one is the hidden dependency on those legacy ERP. We have a highly customized system that is likely to contain undocumented workflow. You may even get there and there might not be any documented workflow. This is a perfect information to have getting into a project. The third section that we have is people and knowledge risk. The first one under those section 3 is retirement of the only legacy ERP expert. He's going to be retiring in 8 months. However, I have found out that from industrial guidelines, it says that 6 months should be kind of a minimum time that I need to make out in order for me to have an effective knowledge transfer. Going into the project with this information, I'm able to sit back and say, okay, within 6 months, or I need to have knowledge transfer started. The second one we have is the new technical team lack legacy system experience. In this session, it did explain that they may be strong in cloud skills, knowing how the cloud system works, but they may not have those experience with legacy ERP familiarity. So that might affect my onboarding. So having this information, I'm keeping out and looking out during my onboarding sessions to see if it's slow, if there's something I need to do more, do I need to allocate more costs or anything, or do I need to allocate more time for this? The third one is resource overload during peak phase. So I will be able to know that, okay, so during data migration, during integration, during testing, there's going to be peak resource overload because those are my peak period. And my resources might be burn out, there might be turnover or quality degradation. Section 4 covers the schedule and deadline risk. That really shows that we have a fixed go live date. Industrial benchmark that we have gathered shows that those fixed deadline increases the risks of scope compressions and quality trade-off. I will look out for any quality trade-off and also those scope compressions in order to ensure that in as much as we have a fixed deadline, but we also deliver a quality product. Another risk which was captured in this is historical patterns of delay in similar projects. So for similar projects, they have had major delays, and so I have to also watch out for this to ensure that all those delays are being mitigated. Then we have the parallel activities with high independencies. I will be able to know that data cleansing, API development, and user training must always align in those projects in order to avoid any risks. Section 5 covers the budget risk. The first one we have is underestimation of integration cost. From our information that we have here, legacy integration typically requires 20 to 30% contingency. I'm going into the project and saying, hey, do I have 20 to 30% contingency to handle any integration overrun? If there's none, let's start planning if this happens. Second one under this section is insufficient allocation for change management. Best practice has always shown that 15 to 20% of the total budget should be allocated for training and adoption. While I'm planning, I'm allocating 15 to 20% of the total budget into training and adoption. The last one is the additional SaaS customization cost. Once you have a customization, a legacy ERP, it always requires an unexpected SaaS extension. So I'll be mindful of this to ensure that I allocate cost with respect for any SaaS customization cost. Section 6 is the scope and change control risk. I have scope creep, which has been identified by some industrial standard. I'll be aware of that, and also the misalignment between business units. I will ensure that during training, during all those change management, or even during requirements, I'll make sure that I manage the conflicts with respect to those major business units that are being impacted by this project. The next one is the testing and quality risk. The first one we have there is the insufficient time for end-to-end testing. I will ensure that as I go through the testing and the quality, I have more time to be able to test. And if the second one we have is the performance issue with legacy POS integration. It did document that the old POS may not handle modern API or data loads. So what I can do is that I can start up, by the time I start up with maybe planning or even execution, I'm educating those technical developers to be able to ensure that we do a thorough testing and make sure that they can be able to handle some of those data loads issues that has been identified. The next one is change management and adoption risk. Usually there may be a low user adoption. I'll take note of that, build a risk mitigation with respect to that. Inadequate training coverage. Ensure that the training is as solid as ever. They have all the information even for their day one job to do their task. Then another one that has been identified is a change fatigue, because there's going to be kind of multiple departments that will be impacted simultaneously, and this may cause stakeholder disengagement or even delay in decision making. So what I can do as a PM is to monitor this, try to build a risk response with this if this ever happens. Section 9 is all about the security and compliance risk. We have the security framework integration issue, in which we are going to have those discussions with my technical team in order to ensure that this does not become an issue in the project. There's also going to be data privacy and regulatory compliance, in which I'm also going to monitor in those. And the final one for this section is section 10, which is a cutover and post-go live risk. There's always a cutover risk because of the cutover complexity, multiple systems, large data volumes, and legacy dependencies. So I'm just going to look at those risks and see how I can mitigate it. Ensure that once I get into my project pre-go live activity, I have an activity whereby I can roll back if there's an issue. The last one I have is hypercare overload, which is the high volume of issues expected if training or testing is insufficient. So I'm just gonna look at training, testing, ensure that that is being, I build a risk response plan with respect to that, and also ensure that they are well trained, they have the budget for training, and they also have the budget for testing. So with this information that we have right now, I can be able to have first, once I have my AI prompts, I have my historical data, I have my project scenarios, and I also have my standard benchmark. I can be able to add those information, ask an AI to identify some of those risks with respect to the information I provided. Then I can take those information, document them, analyze it, and ensure that I work much more effectively in my projects. The next one that we'll be looking at in our next video will be risk assessment. We'll be finding out how likely this would happen. We have identified those risks, but we're going to be finding out what is the likelihood and what will be the impact with respect to cost and also with respect to time. So stay with me, join me in my next session. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Thank you and talk to you soon.